My name is Jonah. Long time ago, God spoke to me and asked me to do something, but I did not obey, and I learned my lesson the hard way. Here's my story. Pick up the good things so that what happened to me will not happen to you.
Word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai.
Jonah, arise and go to the great city of Nineveh, and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me.
But Jonah ran away from the Lord and says,
To Nineveh?
I don't wanna go, no. I don't wanna go, no. I'm heading this way, not to your way, no. I don't wanna go, no. I don't wanna go.
Then Jonah headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed to Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up.
Good day, kids and parents. This is Aisha Giselle, reporting to you about a great storm that is suspected to break a ship that is sailing from Joppa to Tarshish.
Good day, kids and parents. This is Risha Clydine reporting to you. The sailors already tried to lighten up the ship's load, but it seems that the wind is getting more angry.
The captain of the ship woke up a passenger named Jonah and asked him to call on his God. Jonah and the sailors cast lots to know who caused this trouble.
And the lot fell on Jonah. That's why they threw him into the sea. And until now, people can still find where Jonah is.
If anyone will be able to find him, please send a message to the number at your screen.
Once again, this is Risha Clydine,
This is Aisha Giselle.
bringing to you the latest weather update from Kids TV News.
In my distress, I called to you, and you answered me. You hurled me into the deep, to the very heart of the sea. I said, I have been banished from your sight. When my life was ebbing me away, I remembered you, my Lord, and my prayer rose to you. But I will shout and praise. I will say salvation comes from my Lord and say, when my life was ebbing me away, I remembered you, my Lord, and my prayer rose to you into your grace.
The Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God, and his prayer was heard by God. And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time.
Go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message I give you.
Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord and went to Nineveh. Now Nineveh was a very large city. It took 3 days to go through it. Jonah tired from the journey. Jonah began by going a day's journey into the city, proclaiming,
Hear ye, people of Nineveh! 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown by God.
The Ninevites believed God, and they called a fast and put on sackcloth from the greatest to the least of them. When the word reached the king, he covered himself with sackcloth and sat on the ashes and declared that no one will eat nor drink. When God saw their deeds, he did not destroy Nineveh anymore, and this displeased Jonah greatly.
Lord, Lord, oh Lord, was not this what I thought and said? You are full of grace, slow to anger, and very compassionate. I knew you would not overthrow Nineveh. You will forgive them despite the bad things they did.
Jonah, do you have the reason to be angry?
Then Jonah went out from the city and sat east of it. He made a shelter for himself and sat under it until he could see what would happen in the city. Then the Lord appointed a plant and grew it up to be the shade over Jonah's head. Jonah was happy with the plant, but God made a worm to attack it until it withered.
It is better for me not to live. It is so hot here, Lord, and the plant you gave me died.
Do you have a reason to be angry about the plant, Jonah? You had compassion on the plant which came up overnight and perished overnight. Should I have not compassion on Nineveh, a great city with more than 120,000 persons who do not know what is right and wrong?
The Lord is merciful and loving, slow to anger and full of constant love. Full of constant love. He knows our frame and He is mindful that where but other days are like grass, His love is everlasting, as high as the sky is above the earth. So great is His love for those who honor Him, as high as the sky is above the earth. So great is His love for those who honor Him.
A blessed day to everyone. I am here again to introduce to you our Kids TV friend who poured out her heart to God in prayer. And God gave her what she asked for. Kids, I would like you to meet Hannah. Hannah is a wife of Elkanah, a man who lived in Ramathaim. Every year, they were going from their hometown to Shiloh to worship and offer sacrifice to God of the angel armies. Hannah was loved by Elkanah so much, but she always cried whenever they went to the sanctuary of God, because Hannah was not yet given a child by God. Year after year, Elkanah noticed this deep sadness that Hannah had. Hannah would always pray and cry to God, until one day she felt different. While she was in tears praying,
This is my prayer in the desert when all that's within me feels dry. This is my prayer in my hunger and need. My God is the God who provides. And this is my prayer in the fire, in weakness or trial or pain. There is a faith proof the more worth than gold, so refine your Lord through the flame. And I will bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory and He is here. in the harvest, when favor and providence flow. I know I'm filled to be emptied again. The seed I've received I will sow.
Hannah made a vow to God that if God will give her a son, she will dedicate the son completely to God and set him apart to serve God all the days of his life. When Eli the priest saw Hannah crying and praying in her heart silently, thinking that she could be drunk, Hannah told him about her desperation and pain. And Eli gave her peace and blessed her. Hannah believed that God had already answered her. That's why her heart was filled with peace, and she regained her strength. Before the year was out, Hannah conceived. God replied to the faith of Hannah. Hannah named her son Samuel, which means, I asked God for him. And she fulfilled her promise to bring him to God's sanctuary to serve God all the days of his life. Hi kids! Have you met Daniel? The man who spent overnight in a cave with lions without being harmed? Here is how his story began. When Jerusalem was captured by Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar, he ordered that some choice men would serve in the palace. And one of them is Daniel, a good-looking man, gifted in all wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Daniel was trained in the language and culture of Babylonians.
Hi, my name is Daniel.
He was determined to eat only vegetables and drink only water, and he turned out to be healthier and more nourished than the other young men. God gave Daniel the gift of understanding visions and dreams. God also gave Daniel the message about his coming kingdom.
Wow, the kingdom of God.
Because of Daniel's excellent spirit, character, and skills, Daniel was promoted as governor in Babylon, which the other leaders envied. That is why they plotted to find fault in him. They forced King Darius to issue a decree that if anyone will pray to any other god except the king, he will be thrown into the lion's den. Daniel was found not to follow the decree because Daniel was devoted to God in prayer.
To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise. Let the name of God be blessed forever and ever.
This caused Daniel to be cast into the lion's den. But the Lord delivered Daniel by shutting the mouths of lions. And when Daniel was lifted out of the den, they did not find any injury in his body. The lions did not hurt Daniel because he trusted in his God. After this, King Darius commanded to bring the men who accused Daniel to the lion's den. Then he asked all the nations of the earth to fear and honor the God of Daniel, because he is so powerful to save Daniel from the lions.
Good day, kids. My name is Aisha. Welcome to Kids TV Great Woman in Focus. We have a very special guest today with the special grace of leading with boldness and compassion. Let us give a warm of applause to Queen Esther from Persia. Hi, Queen Esther. Thank you for being with us today, and I'm sure everyone is excited to listen to your encouraging story. Queen Esther, can you please tell us what was the situation then in Persia before you became a queen?
When King Xerxes gave a big banquet at the palace, he called for the then Queen Vashti to be paraded before everyone. But the queen refused. This made the king very angry that he sent Queen Vashti away with ominous threats. The king, through the advice of the wise men, commanded to select a new queen to replace Vashti, to give her crown to another more deserving.
So this is what I read, that a beauty pageant of some sort was held, and oh! Among the girls in Persia, you were the one crowned as the most beautiful and most regal. I guess this was every woman's dream that time. Queen Esther, when you were younger, did it enter your mind that you will become a queen one day?
Never did I imagine that, Aisha. I was just an ordinary girl, an orphan who was raised by my cousin Mordecai, who treated me as a real daughter. My real name was Hadassah, but he gave me another name, Esther, maybe because he already saw that I would be a star someday.
Our third question. What are the most important lessons you learned from your cousin Mordecai that led you to be where you are now?
It was my cousin who taught me about God and his love for the Jewish people. I also learned obedience from him because I knew my cousin loves me, that he dedicated his life in raising me up as a fine woman.
For my final question, as a leader or as a queen, what was the most challenging situation you were into and how were you able to overcome it?
When there was an evil plot to kill the Jewish people at that time, I had to receive favor from the king and carry a great measure of courage to save my nation. What the Lord made me to accomplish was really beyond my capacity, so I believe it was Him who worked it out. My people and my cousin supported me through prayer and fasting.
Thank you very much, Queen Esther. The way you led during your reign was something everyone can emulate. You're an embodiment, not just of real beauty, but strength that comes from knowing that God called you for a purpose, for a time and season that only you can accomplish such thing.
David was the son of an Ephrathite named Jesse. He was from Bethlehem in Judah. Jesse had 8 sons, and in Saul's time, he was very old. David was the youngest, and while the 3 oldest, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah, followed Saul to the war. David went back and forth to tend his father's sheep at Bethlehem. Now Jesse told his son David to take the food he prepared for his other sons and hurry to their camp. He commanded him to see how his brothers are and bring back some assurance from them. They are with Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. When David reached the camp, as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry, David heard how Goliath intimidated the Israelites. A champion from Gath, he was wearing a thick helmet, an armor, and carrying a huge weapon. He stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, which he has been doing for the past 40 days and 40 nights. David didn't like how this giant defied the armies of the living God. But his oldest brother, Eliab, heard his voice and angrily commanded him to go home immediately to herd their sheep. Eliab also accused him that he has just wanted to watch the battle. David told King Saul that he will fight Goliath. At first, Saul didn't want David to go because he was just a young boy. But David insisted that he has been keeping his father's sheep and has killed a lion and a bear. He said that his Philistine will be like lion and the bear that he struck and killed because he was defying God's armies. Then at last, Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. Meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised David. And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. David said to the Philistine,
You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts.
So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without the sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him.